Madison Hartwell stood on that conference table like she was about to announce the second coming of Silicon Valley. Except instead of unveiling some revolutionary app, she pointed straight at me and said, "Rick, you're done. Effective immediately. My name's Rick Patterson, I'm 58 years old, and I just got fired in front of half the company while eating a turkey sandwich from the cafeteria." Coffee cups froze halfway to mouths. Conversations died mid-sentence. All I could hear was that weird silence you get right before a car wreck. This kid just terminated me in front of 20 junior staff members and the entire operations team while sipping her oat milk latte and calling it removing legacy inefficiencies. I didn't say a word. Didn't flinch. Just pulled out my master key ring, the one I'd carried for 15 years. The same keys that opened everything from the boiler room to the executive server closet. Held them up like a bartender sliding a drink to a problem customer and said, "Good luck." She smirked like she'd just conquered corporate America, like I was some old-timer janitor who'd finally been shown the door. But what Madison didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that those keys weren't just for locks. They were for systems, contracts, security protocols, vendor agreements. Half of them didn't even open physical doors anymore, they authenticated critical infrastructure. And here's the thing. If you're the type who reads stories like this without hitting subscribe or giving it a thumbs up, you'd probably let Madison get away with this too. Don't be that guy. Hit that like button because trust me, you'll want to see how this plays out. Madison wasn't born, she was manufactured in some trust fund laboratory. You could smell the generational wealth radiating off her designer blazer. She didn't climb any corporate ladder. She glided down from the executive floor on a golden parachute embroidered with Daddy's initials. When the founder, her old man, stepped back for strategic consulting, the board named her interim CEO while they pretended not to panic. She won the lottery by being born, and now she was treating Hartwell Industries like her personal playground, already calling male executives buddy in meetings, rearranging org charts like refrigerator magnets, and referring to herself in third person. Madison doesn't micromanage, she told the IT team. Madison creates synergistic paradigm shifts. Then came the purge. Started that morning by firing Jerry, our quality control manager. Poor guy had been there since Reagan was president, just quietly cried into his coffee and packed his cardboard box. Then she cut the employee wellness program and terminated 2 remote workers over Zoom, muted them halfway through their goodbye speeches. But I was the main event, the power move she needed. Madison required a scapegoat with a name people recognized, someone to prove the old guard was finished. So she took me out like a rusty filing cabinet, loudly, publicly, with maximum drama. I didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't even argue, just walked past the reception desk, past the shocked interns, past that motivational poster I always hated, "Teamwork makes the dream work," and straight to my truck. See, what Madison didn't understand about guys like me is we don't just have jobs, we have missions. 15 years ago, when I mustered out of the Marines after 20 years of service, I brought that same attention to detail and operational security mindset to Hartwell Industries. While she was learning to drive her BMW, I was learning every system, every protocol, every vendor relationship that kept this place running. I didn't drive home immediately. Sat in the parking garage for a while, staring at those keys in my palm. They felt heavier than usual, not because of the metal, but because of everything they represented. Authority, responsibility, 15 years of institutional knowledge that you can't just download from the internet. My ex-wife Linda used to say I cared more about that company than our marriage. Maybe she was right. After the divorce 3 years ago, with both kids grown and moved out to California, Hartwell Industries became my family. I knew every pipe, every circuit, every regulation that kept us compliant with federal standards. Then I opened my glove compartment and pulled out the blue folder, operations protocols and authorization keys. 15 years ago, the founder trusted me with access that didn't come with a fancy title. It came with legal liability. I was the guy who stayed overnight during the cyber attack in 2019. When the fire marshal said our server configuration violated safety codes, I was the one who negotiated the variance. When our defense contracts required security clearance verification, I was the one who signed the compliance documents. I had signing authority, vendor credentials, security clearances, and now they had a 29-year-old MBA who thought root access was something you got at the farmer's market. Let her play CEO, let her throw tantrums and fire good people. She just terminated the one guy who literally held the keys to the kingdom, both the physical ones and the legal ones. The irony wasn't lost on me that she'd renamed Daddy's company Hartwell Industries, and now I was about to show her what happened when you disrespect a Patterson. My front door always sticks a little to the left. Foundation settled weird back in 2008 and I never fixed it. Kind of like that it pushes back, that's how the world should work when something's not right. I kicked it open, dropped my work bag next to the dog's water bowl, and sat at the kitchen table like a man who'd just been sucker punched by nepotism wearing Prada. I wasn't angry yet, just quiet. There's a specific kind of silence that settles in your bones when something you built day after day, year after year, gets handed to someone who thinks compliance is a type of yoga. Madison didn't just fire me, she amputated the company's nervous system and didn't notice the twitching. I got up and went to the hall closet, reached behind the winter coats, and pulled down the black binder that hadn't seen daylight since our last safety audit. Hartwell Industries Operations Protocols and Custodial Authority. Inside was everything Madison never thought to ask about: every security override, every vendor access code, every emergency procedure her father and I put in place when we were still running servers out of a converted warehouse. On page 1, in bold letters, Richard Patterson named Custodial Officer of Record. See, when you don't demand corner offices or executive parking spaces, people forget what they've signed. But I remember every meeting, every conference call with legal, every system failure I fixed with duct tape, and 30 years of manufacturing experience. I was written into the DNA of that company like rebar in concrete, quiet, buried, and structurally essential. Flashback to 5 years ago. The founder handed me a pen and said, "We need someone who understands both the machinery and the regulations, someone with backbone." That signature put me on every federal compliance record, every infrastructure lease, every multi-factor authentication system tied to our government contracts. I was the fail-safe, the backup plan, the guy they'd call when a vendor threatened to pull out or when the Defense Department started asking questions at 3 a.m. You don't fire the fail-safe without a transition plan. You don't terminate him publicly and expect the systems to keep running on autopilot. But Madison wanted headlines, not continuity. So I started making calls. Quiet ones, professional ones. First was Tom at Secure Vault Systems, our primary data hosting provider. He answered on the second ring. "Rick, what the hell happened? We just got a credential bounce back. Are you okay?" "Hey Tom, just letting you know I'm no longer authorized to approve maintenance overrides on the Tier 1 servers." Dead silence. "But your name's still the primary contact on our federal compliance framework. Not my circus anymore, buddy." Then I called Janet at Milspec Logistics, our defense contract vendor. She laughed when I said I was out. That explains the authentication errors. Madison's people tried to reset the security protocols this morning and locked themselves out of the system. Tell them to contact someone else, I'm done. Each call was surgical. No bitterness, no sabotage, just absence. The sudden deafening quiet of 1,000 assumed responsibilities disappearing into thin air. The first sign of trouble came at 7:15 a.m. the next morning when Madison tried to badge into the main building and got that long, disappointed beep. She swiped again, same sound. Then again, jamming the card like it owed her money. Nothing. Carl, our maintenance guy who'd been there since the Carter administration, just shrugged and said, "Might want to talk to Rick about that." Madison turned pale and snapped, "He doesn't work here anymore." Carl nodded slowly. "Yeah, that explains it," and walked off whistling. By 8:30 a.m., half the company was stranded outside in business casual, clustering around the badge readers like confused tourists at a locked museum. The overnight IT system had detected an unauthorized credential termination and automatically locked down building access pending manual override that required my biometric signature. James, our head tech, got pulled in. He calmly explained over speakerphone to Madison, "We can't provision new badge authorizations until we get the master credentials transferred." "So do it," Madison demanded, pacing outside in her $400 heels. "We can't." The root administrator was Rick. He's the only one who could create new admin accounts without triggering federal security flags. We tried emailing him, got an auto reply. Madison groaned. "Can't you hack around it?" "Ma'am, he designed it to resist exactly that. It's compliant with DoD tamper prevention protocols. In simple terms, we're locked out of our own building." By noon, payroll hit a snag, not because the money wasn't there, but because the routing systems were stuck in validation limbo. Our finance director was practically shouting into Madison's phone, We need the secondary authorization token. Rick used to run it through his physical key fob. It's dual verification, and we're missing half the equation. We'll get a new one, Madison replied, finally inside thanks to a facilities override that took 3 hours. The issuing agency says our authorization expired when he left, and guess who was listed as the renewal contact? Meanwhile, procurement got a nasty surprise. A shipment of critical manufacturing parts worth $5,000 got rejected at the gate. The vendor system flagged us as compliance unresolved. The rep emailed, "We noticed your primary compliance signatory is no longer employed and there's no replacement filed. Please update your records." Madison replied, "We don't need compliance signatories. This is the new Hartwell Industries. The vendor permanently flagged our account within 2 hours." That afternoon, someone in IT tried logging into the facilities management system and accidentally triggered a security lockdown. The backup HVAC kicked in and cranked the west wing up to 92 degrees. Employees started sweating through their dress shirts like steamed vegetables. The override required my security clearance, the same clearance Madison had just invalidated by firing me without proper federal notification. Someone in HR finally said what everyone was thinking. Did we just fire the only person who knew how this place actually works? Yes. Yes, they did. Across town, I was sitting at Murphy's Diner, sipping coffee and chuckling over scrambled eggs. I'd been watching the badge lockout thread in the company Slack channel. Yeah, they forgot to disable my old emergency IT account I'd set up during COVID remote work, never audited by Madison's team when they took over. Watching the panic from a distance felt like watching someone try to perform surgery with a butter knife. No sabotage, no malice, just systems returning to their default state when the only person keeping them operational quietly stepped away. Like pulling the keystone out of an arch and acting surprised when the ceiling starts sagging. By 5 p.m., Madison sent a mass email titled "Growing Pains Are Natural," trying to spin the chaos as part of her transformation strategy. But systems don't read corporate communications, and federal compliance frameworks don't believe in inspirational messaging. Rick Patterson had been the quiet foundation for 15 years. Remove him suddenly, and it doesn't collapse immediately. It just starts cracking layer by layer until someone notices the walls are leaning. By Thursday morning, 3 days after the firing, the real earthquake hit. The call came at 7:45 a.m. on Thursday. Too early for salespeople, too professional for spam. I let it go to voicemail while I made coffee, then played the message back. "Mr. Patterson, this is Colonel Benjamin Cross from Pentagon Procurement conducting a compliance review. We'd appreciate 15 minutes of your time regarding your previous role at Hartwell Industries." 15 minutes. That's what they always ask for. 15 minutes that can unravel everything a company thinks it knows about itself. I called back an hour later. We kept it professional, military to military. Yes, I'd been terminated without notice. No, I hadn't been properly off-boarded from my custodial role. Yes, I was still the last verified custodial officer on record for their $350 million defense manufacturing contract. No, I no longer held those credentials by choice. And yes, there had been multiple unauthorized access attempts to classified systems after my departure. I didn't speculate, didn't accuse, just read the facts like you'd read someone the weather forecast before their picnic gets rained out. Colonel Cross thanked me. That was it. By noon, Hartwell Industries' contract manager noticed the Pentagon had gone quiet. Their emails shifted from friendly to formal, with phrases like pending review and compliance gap assessment starting to surface like warning buoys in a shipping lane. At 3:20 p.m., Madison sent an all-caps message to legal. "Why is the Pentagon stalling? Fix this now." Legal replied with a forwarded email from Colonel Cross. Following consultation with former custodial officer Richard Patterson and a preliminary audit of access logs, we are pausing contract negotiations pending full DoD compliance review. The board was notified within the hour. For the first time since Madison's cafeteria circus, she wasn't running the meeting. They asked pointed questions. When was Rick officially off-boarded? Who authorized replacing him with Ashley, the 26-year-old digital innovation specialist? Why is a terminated employee the only one responding to federal inquiries? Why are there 47 unauthorized login attempts to classified portals since his departure? Madison deflected, naturally blamed legacy systems and outdated infrastructure, used phrases like streamlined operations and agile compliance frameworks. At one point, she actually said, "Compliance is a mindset, not a checklist." A board member replied, "Well, the Pentagon's mindset just put our $350 million contract on ice." The emergency board meeting wasn't on any calendar. No Slack announcements, no corporate memo with fake enthusiasm. This was the kind of meeting that happens behind closed doors with phones turned off and voices kept low, even when everything's falling apart. The founder was there, wasn't supposed to be, technically still on his strategic sabbatical in Arizona, but one phone call from the board chair about a frozen $350 million defense contract, and suddenly he was on the first flight back to reality. The man who'd built this company from nothing, watching his daughter burn it down in real time. Legal went first. Our general counsel, Michael, looked like he hadn't slept in 4 days and was working on day 5. He started calmly. We've confirmed that Richard Patterson was never properly off-boarded from his custodial role. Madison rolled her eyes. We've been through this. He's gone. Michael didn't blink. Gone in body, not in legal protocol. He was the named custodian on federal compliance frameworks, vendor contracts, and security certifications. When he was terminated without formal transition procedures, those authorizations became orphaned, which means, legally, our current operations are unauthorized. Madison leaned back in her chair. It's just paperwork. Update it. The CFO cleared her throat and slid a thick folder down the table. Every page was tabbed and highlighted like evidence in a murder trial. It's not just paperwork. Our insurance requires validated custodial controls. Our vendor contracts include clauses requiring 30-day notice for changes in compliance-sensitive positions. Because none of those steps were followed, we're in breach of 14 contracts, including our primary defense contract. Madison's jaw tightened. This is being blown out of proportion. That's when the founder spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. You're telling me we fired our operations backbone without replacing him and kept running like everything was fine? Michael nodded grimly. Worse than that, sir. We attempted to backdate the compliance filings, which were automatically flagged by federal systems as suspicious. We're now under administrative review. The founder stared at Madison like a man watching his legacy melt in real time. How much exposure are we talking about? The Pentagon contract alone is worth $350 million over 3 years. If they walk, our other government clients will likely follow. We're looking at potential regulatory penalties, insurance violations, and breach of contract lawsuits totaling approximately $500 million. Madison tried one last desperate play. We'll spin it as modernization. Tell the media it's part of our digital transformation strategy. Bring in consultants who understand the new economy. Michael folded his hands like a funeral director. You can't spin federal compliance violations, Madison, and if this becomes public before we can remedy it, we're looking at congressional oversight on top of everything else. The room went quiet, except for the sound of Madison's world collapsing in real time. Her father, the man who'd built this company from a single government contract in 1987, sat with his head in his hands. That's when the final blow landed. 48 hours after my Pentagon call, the Pentagon made it official. A terse email arrived at 9:17 a.m. Due to unresolved compliance irregularities, DoD is terminating contract negotiations with Hartwell Industries effective immediately. Alternative vendors are being evaluated. Madison called an emergency all-hands meeting, stood in the same cafeteria where she'd fired me 2 weeks earlier, trying to rally troops who could smell the smoke. This is temporary, she insisted. We're pivoting to commercial markets. Government contracts are old economy thinking anyway. But commercial clients had been watching. When a defense contractor loses Pentagon certification, word travels fast in manufacturing circles. By the end of that week, 6 civilian contracts were under review. Vendors started demanding cash on delivery instead of net 30 terms. Across town, I was hanging my shingle. Patterson Strategic Solutions, simple black letters on frosted glass. Small office on the 5th floor with a window view of Hartwell Industries across the street. My desk faced that window, which wasn't an accident. The funding came quietly from 3 former Hartwell clients who'd left with bitter tastes and ironclad NDAs. They reached out through intermediaries, said they were tired of chaos disguised as innovation. They didn't want buzzwords, they wanted results, delivered by someone who understood both the technical requirements and the bureaucratic reality of government work. Day 1, already profitable. Day 2, booked solid for 3 months. Day 3, the Pentagon called. Mr. Patterson, this is Colonel Cross. We've been reviewing your credentials independently of your former employer. Would you be interested in discussing some consulting opportunities? The irony wasn't lost on me. The same contract Madison lost, I was being offered as an independent contractor. The Pentagon didn't want Hartwell Industries. They wanted the guy who'd actually been running their programs for 15 years. At 9:30 a.m. the following Monday, I watched through my office window as the founder paced outside Hartwell Industries' side entrance, phone pressed to his ear like he was trying to extract answers through the speaker. Then came Madison, being escorted by legal into the boardroom. Same designer outfit, same entitled posture, now wilted like week-old flowers. My phone buzzed. A text from James in IT. Founder's back permanently. Madison's been in legal review for 3 hours. Word is they're discussing leadership transition. Someone finally read the facility lease. I smiled and kept reading. They just realized the building lease still has your name as transition authority in case of ownership disruption. Nobody ever updated it after the founder's sabbatical. This is getting messy fast. The lease had been rewritten during our 2019 security expansion. After the cyber attack that year, our insurance company required someone with institutional knowledge and legal authority to sign backup custodial provisions. I'd signed under a clause that in case of executive disruption, facility control would temporarily revert to the custodial officer until formal reassignment, a requirement added after our security breach when insurance demanded backup custodial continuity. That clause was never updated, not when he went on sabbatical, not when Madison took over. They'd forgotten I was still on the paperwork because nobody bothered reading the fine print. Now they were discovering that the boy king had been playing in a castle that still legally belonged to someone else. The final meeting wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no storming out, just quiet professionals delivering a corporate death sentence with PowerPoint slides and federal regulations. The founder delivered one devastating line. "You didn't fire an employee, Madison. You dissolved our operational backbone." Then came the autopsy. Every system tied to my credentials, every compliance framework bearing my signature, every vendor relationship built on 15 years of trust. The security tokens Madison had demanded I hand over? Without my biometric verification, they'd automatically disabled half the company's systems as a breach prevention measure. The lockdowns were automatic, Michael explained, triggered by unresolved credential orphaning. The system assumed it was a security breach, which in many ways it was. At 9:45 a.m. that Friday, I walked across the street one last time. Not sneaking, not strutting, just walking through the lobby like I used to, familiar steps down a familiar hallway. The receptionist looked up, startled. "Mr. Patterson?" I smiled and held up a small keychain, 2 keys, one physical, one electronic, both obsolete now. "Just returning some hardware," I said, dropping them in the visitor tray. She blinked. "Should I tell them you're here?" I glanced toward the boardroom where Madison's career was being quietly dismantled by lawyers and spreadsheets. "Tell them," I said, turning toward the door. "I got new keys." I didn't wait for a response. Didn't look back. Because this wasn't about revenge, it was about respect. And they finally understood the difference. Semper Fi.